Consumer sentiment is low. No, it's not just low, it's the lowest it's ever been. Is the economy really imploding? Are we headed to or already in a severe recession? What do you think? Today, we're going to look at what the causes may be. There's two main causes why that may be the case. And then look at some hard evidence that, in fact, we are in a recession right now, that the economy is imploding. Thank you for joining me in Ron's Basement. I get lonely down here all by myself, so I'm so happy when you decide to click on the video and join me. Let's dig in right now. We're going to dig into 10 or so factors that point to the fact that we are already in a recession, possibly economic implosion. But before we do that, it's important we understand the two factors that are causing all this to happen. Number one, we have higher interest rates. The Federal Reserve is in a hawkish stance, raising rates. We already know that. But what's important to recognize is that the bond market has already raised rates for the Fed, much more than the Fed has actually raised them. The 10-year bond, which is the bellwether measure, has increased just this year from around 1.5% to a high recently of 3.5%. That makes everything more expensive for everybody. Mortgages, companies that are borrowing money, it constricts the amount of money in the economy available for economic activity. The second thing that's having a major impact is obviously inflation. Have you looked at the price of oil, food, housing, etc.? Oil is burning and food is eating away at everyone, including me and you. It's eating away at our discretionary income. That extra $30 that we may have bought ourselves a fancy new swimsuit from Old Navy to wear at the pool, well, now that $30 is going into the gas tank. You know, for really wealthy people, and maybe that's you, they can absorb these increases relatively easily. But for the vast majority of people in the world, people in America, at minimum, higher food, higher gas prices, higher rent prices is eating into their discretionary income, if not destroying it altogether. Think about the guy who lives paycheck to paycheck. A year ago, 2 years ago, compared to now, he has like much less money to use for entertainment, for new clothes, for maybe a little weekend getaway trip. I mean, probably can't even afford to go camping, right? They think, well, I can't afford to pay the campsite, and I sure as hell can't afford to pay the gas to put in my truck to drive to the campsite. So those are the two causes. High interest rates, right, which makes money more expensive for all of us, and high inflation that eats away at everyone's ability to spend. Now let's take a look at 10 or so pieces of hard evidence that the U.S. economy is already in a recession or a state of economic implosion. But first, I just want to say thank you for choosing to join me today here in the basement. This is the home for like-minded people, people that want to know the truth, analyze the big picture, get to the bottom of things, provide safety and security to their family. My viewers are very intelligent people. They're also very kind people, and I appreciate you being here. You can subscribe to my channel, give the video a thumbs up, or hit the little bell notification. That way you get alerted every time I put out a new video. Let's move on to these 10 facts. Consumer sentiment is low. No, it's not just low, it's the lowest it's ever been, from my understanding, since they started measuring and recording the data. People don't feel confident in buying things. People don't have money, as I previously discussed, because of the inflation. Consumer sentiment is crashing here in the United States, and I would imagine throughout the world. The next thing we need to look at is mortgage applications. They are down almost 50%. 50%, half the number of people are applying for mortgages to buy homes today compared to, I would imagine, just like 6 months ago. What does that tell you about the health of the real estate market and what we may see coming in the real estate market? The real estate market has a 2 to 3 month lag. I would imagine come September, October, November, it's going to be a cold winter for real estate. Let's talk about employment. Employment's great, right? Yeah, sure, as long as you believe their numbers. And there's much suspicion surrounding the official numbers released by our government regarding employment. Like, how many people just gave up looking and they're not counted as part of the unemployed? But nonetheless, an interesting fact, 44%, almost half, percent of American workers are afraid of layoffs. And that gets a little scary when you consider that 25%, 1 in 4 of American people have $0 saved, and 84% of Americans believe that we are heading into a recession, and belief is a very powerful force. And let's talk about those big, prestigious Wall Street banks. Even they are starting to increase their odds of a recession in the United States. Citibank recently said 50% chance of a recession. JPMorgan, I think, is 35%. And the king of the kings, Goldman Sachs, says there's a 30% chance of a recession. Look, these guys are paid to be optimists. They're paid to sell people stocks, bonds, mutual funds, whatever. So when they're starting to actually recognize that we may have a recession coming, your ears might just want to perk up. Do you see my ears perking up? And even the Grand Wizard of Oz himself, the Federal Reserve, the New York Fed, recently said they think there's about an 80% chance of a quote-unquote hard landing. I don't know if they mean recession, depression, implosion, but we are gonna find out. And have you been to the doctor lately? You know, it's important you're healthy so you can keep coming back here to Ron's basement. Take care of your health. But nonetheless, have you heard of Dr. Copper? Copper is referred to Dr. Copper because it is a very, very reliable, predictive metal for the economy. When the economy slows, the price of copper drops. Copper has dropped, I think, almost 20 or 25% in the last 5-6 weeks alone. And to backstop all of this good news, we have outrageous, crazy amounts of debt in this country. I don't know about you, but I hate debt. Let me know in the comments section below. I have hated debt from day one. I have zero debt. I hate debt. But nonetheless, we as a country have a ton of government debt, both on a federal, state, and municipal level. Just unbelievable the amount of government debt we have, which is a big drag on all of us and everything. But it gets worse because we have corporate debt that's through the roof. Corporations borrowed like crazy when rates were low, right? So they could buy back stock and pay big bonuses and all that. Well, now that rates are higher, it's much, much more expensive for them to refinance all this debt that most of them didn't use on anything productive. But we've also got massive amounts of mortgage debt in this country. And with these higher rates, if house prices drop, we're going to have a lot of people that are upside down. We've got outrageous levels of student debt because we brainwashed everybody. They have to go to college, and it's a good idea to take out a bunch of debt to go to college. And we can't forget about consumer debt because with all this high inflation and people that are on tight budgets, they got to use their credit cards just to put gas in their car so they can get to their job to make a little money so they can spend all that money on overpriced food. And a couple final little interesting tidbits. We've got food plants in the United States that are either burning down or shutting their doors. There's a huge list on, I think it's Zero Hedge. There's an article you can read. They had like 100 plants that either burned down or have been shut. So this food shortage situation could become real soon. Also, in the United Kingdom, I've read about a couple major construction companies that are having like serious financial troubles, and that can send massive reverberations through to all their subcontractors, everything else. And the final thing that I find very interesting is that on YouTube, a lot of the major YouTube producers are complaining that their revenue they get from YouTube is going down. And that is in direct correlation to lower advertising. Companies aren't advertising as much on YouTube. They're paying less. There's less demand, so they're having to pay less, which means that massive YouTube celebrities, not me, but the massive ones, are seeing a significant drop in their what's called AdSense revenue. All these things that I talked about are pointing toward serious economic issues, economic turmoil. I don't want to be a prophet of doom, but I'm just kind of sharing with you what we see. It's definitely the case that high oil is burning and high food is eating into all of our discretionary incomes and is creating a situation, especially when you consider high interest rates, where it appears the economy is not in great shape. Hey, thanks for joining me in the basement. I'm glad you're here. You're always welcome here. You're important. There's a lot of people that like you, including me. And until next time, you be well.